Okay, so maybe Facebook did some little changing around because he's not seeing the icons. So we're going to try this a fourth time and see if he can actually access the live stream. Let's see. He says, okay, just found out after you start the live stream, send me an invite and I can join your live stream. Let's try it one more time. Fourth time is the charm. See, search, Tim, invite. Invitation sent. The last time the error was my fault. I actually canceled the live stream. Didn't mean to do that. Okay. And if this doesn't work out, we've got a backup plan. You can do I'm actually on my mobile phone, so he can actually call me on my computer through Facebook, and I can just flip the camera back and forth, and we can have the conversation that way. So let's see if Tim, give it a shot. Do you see the icons at all? Because if not, we can go to the backup plan. Look for the most recent live stream. It just says Tim Akinbo of Tanjalo interview. Okay, so he doesn't see the icons. We're going to go to the backup plan. Can you hear me, Tim? If so, give me a call, and I will flip back and forth between my computer. If not, you know what? I'll just do it. Hold on one second. I'm going to give him a call. That'll work. All right, Tim. Hold on. We're going to do it this way. So that means I'm gonna be on my phone, and then we'll flip back and forth. Welcome to the live stream. It's a possibility that Facebook may have changed some things because you know, they always, the new person-in-person Facebook live stream is something that's new to them. So they could be doing some updates or upgrades or something like that. And because normally there's an icon that runs across the bottom, kind of like this one. And then the first one that's on this side, it's kind of a different color from all the rest. It's like a white and green, and you click on it, and then I can see it, and then I can add you to the live stream. So you might hear some beeping in the background because people are constantly posting and commenting, but we can definitely get through the interview this way. So tell us your name. Give us a little bit about your IT background so we have an idea of who you are. Sorry, that was my screen. What happened? Are you there? Can you hear me? No, we just lost him again. Let's try. Are you there? All right, let's try this again. Yeah, call again. All right.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I lost you a little bit, and I recalled it. But my first question was to give us a little bit about your background. Tell us your IT background, and give us a little bit of perspective.
Okay. Hello, people. My name is Tim Akinbo, and I am actually delighted to be on this particular webinar. And, I'm going to basically just give you a little bit of my background. I'm a software developer, and I am based here in Lagos, Nigeria. I actually run a company that builds software for a number of different non-governmental organizations. And I got into cryptocurrencies maybe about the year 2011. That was when I actually heard about Bitcoin, and it was fascinating, and I would say I went down the rabbit hole, and I haven't recovered since.
So tell us about that first encounter. How did that transpire that you heard about either Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in general, and what was your aha moment?
So I think my aha moment actually came maybe about it probably would have been about the same time when I read about Bitcoin. So digital currencies have not actually been a very new concept to me. I think the first digital currency I really used on the internet was this service called eGold. And this was at a time in my life, or generally when I was actually just getting online. And back then,
what year was this?
Nigeria, there were.
What year was this?
That would probably have been in the year 2003.
Okay.
Or 4, thereabout. And it was, obviously one of the really interesting things about the internet is that not only can you interact with people, but you could also participate in commerce. You could buy stuff online, you could sell stuff online. And as a Nigerian, one of the significant limitations I found while actually, being online was that there were no just ways for me to actually make a payment online. So maybe I, was reading something online and I wanted to set up a website, or I wanted to buy an electronic book. There was just no way I could actually make that payment online. I came across.
Now, why is that? I mean, you can't use PayPal or you can't use Stripe. Give people some perspective of why that is.
So back then, there weren't credit cards like you have, in the US. And right now we do have credit cards, but back then, there wasn't just that infrastructure in place. So despite the fact that I had a bank account, I had, money in the account, there wasn't just a way that I could make that payment online because our own banks weren't connected to the global financial system. And so that was where currencies or digital currencies like eGold actually kind of offered a means through which you could actually make payments online. And back then you had to go through a lot of hoops just to be able to get your account funded so that you could make those payments. And there were a number of entrepreneurs who actually made it their business to offer exchange services. And well, despite the fact that it was expensive, that was an option. So, but the unfortunate thing was that there weren't that many merchants who were accepting eGold.
So eGold was pre-Bitcoin, correct?
That's right.
And did it operate on a blockchain, or how did that? Who was behind that?
So eGold, just like many other digital currencies, are not decentralized like Bitcoin. Okay. They don't operate a blockchain. They run off of databases that are actually hosted on servers. And one of the limitations of such kind of a structure is that they are susceptible to actually being shut down by governments. And that was what happened with eGold and Liberty Reserve and so many other of this kind of currencies, was that, for some reason, because of the ease with which people could actually move money using those systems, unfortunately, they found themselves vulnerable to being used by money launderers. And as a consequence, they got investigated and they were shut down. And so eGold, came and, passed on. And we also had so many other kinds of digital currencies that came and pretty much didn't live long. And that was what actually led my interest into Bitcoin. I heard about Bitcoin in 2011, and one of the things that struck me the most about it was that there was no central server, there was no central authority, and there was just this magical internet money that somehow, had the ability for it to be self-governed. And, that kind of really piqued my interest because I'd seen a number of these digital currencies come and go, and I was curious to find out how Bitcoin was going to be different. And that was what actually led my interest into trying to figure out, how is this not a scam? I was curious to actually know how it worked. Fortunately, because I'm a techie, I was able to actually read a little more about the source code and how it worked. And it took me a couple of years to finally be able to fully understand how it works and be able to say, oh yeah, now I understand why Bitcoin works and why I really do think it's different from a lot of its predecessors.
Now
so that was what actually led me to Bitcoin.
Now you started the first Bitcoin node not only in Nigeria but all of West Africa. So first of all, for our group is primarily full of beginners. How can you explain in layman's terms what is a Bitcoin node, and follow up with why did you think this was beneficial to have in Nigeria?
Good. So one of the critical infrastructure, what makes Bitcoin work, is the fact that you have these computers that are distributed across the globe that are maintaining a copy of the ledger. And so this ledger is what you generally call the blockchain. And it's nothing different from just a simple record of every Bitcoin transaction. Now, Bitcoin works because this ledger, you remember when I said that, unlike systems like Eagle and Liberty Reserve, these systems actually had central servers. So it was easy for them to be shut down. All you had to do was just go to the data center where you had this server, unplug it from the internet, and that was the end.
Right.
But with Bitcoin, you have all these servers that are equal, that are scattered across the globe. And so you shut one down, and then the network can still operate with the other nodes. You shut down another one, and the other ones take up. And then you bring up another node online, and then that server just kind of downloads a copy of the blockchain from the other nodes, and then it is online. And so in the spirit of actually helping to make sure that Bitcoin still remains available for people around the world to use it, specifically, I consider the fact that if you think about Nigeria being cut off from the internet, will Bitcoin still be able to work? Well, at least if there's one node that is able to actually provide access to the entire Bitcoin system, then that node will actually be able to keep Bitcoin transactions running. Now, of course, it's not as simple as I've just mentioned it, that you just need one Bitcoin node to be able to run the entire Bitcoin system, because all these nodes kind of cooperate with each other to ensure that the other nodes are kept up to date, and that transactions are not, you don't have fraudulent or forged transactions being relayed on the network. So a node just essentially it provides the entire Bitcoin system and makes it even more accessible. So in running a node in Nigeria, I wanted to, because I'm a developer, I also use that node to actually kind of build services, to run experiments and what have you. But in addition to providing a service to me, it was also providing a service to other nodes. So one classical example would be mobile wallets. Every time you use certain mobile wallets, they all connect to one of these nodes to provide information about what transactions that they have received. And so by running one of these nodes, I was adding to the infrastructure to actually make the system work.
Okay. So tell us about the energy consumption when it comes to using a node. Is that an issue in Nigeria in terms of, I don't know about how much computing power. I know that as it relates to mining, they always try to put it like in the northernmost regions of Europe or some cold places. Is that in terms of running computer that kind of never stops? Is that an issue where you are?
Mm-hmm. So, Bitcoin mining is different from running a Bitcoin node.
Okay.
When you run a Bitcoin node, all you're doing is just maintaining a copy of all the Bitcoin transactions on the network, both for yourself and then also providing a service to other users of the Bitcoin network. And so the energy requirements for running a Bitcoin node are negligible. You can run a Bitcoin node from your laptop, and it will not take any more resources than you would say having your browser up and running. However, the energy requirements for running a Bitcoin mining node is different because what you're doing is you're helping to secure transactions on the network. And in doing so, we have this very interesting way of electing who gets to add those transactions to the network. So Bitcoin is a very interesting system. The big problem that Bitcoin solved is this issue called a double spend problem. So here's how double spend works. Digital information can be copied infinitely. We have this video being recorded right now. You can watch this video 1,000 times. You can make a download of the video. You can copy and make a copy for a friend. That same copy can be duplicated 1,000,000 times, probably even trillion times. So digital information can be copied. However, when you run a digital currency, you're also relying on the same digital infrastructure. You're still relying on the same digital principles, which makes it possible for you to make multiple copies. So this is the problem with running a digital currency. How do you create a system such that if I create a transaction, which is essentially a message saying that I am sending X coin or 10X coins to Deidra, right? What is to prevent me from writing another message saying I'm sending those same 10X coins to Michael? Okay. Well, in the digital world, there's nothing that actually stops me from doing that. However, that is actually a double spend, meaning I'm attempting to spend the same coin more than once. Now, in order to prevent that, and this was the big problem that Bitcoin was able to solve, was that it had to create a system whereby if someone spends a transaction, there has to be a certain amount of work that is done before that transaction is added permanently to the Bitcoin ledger. And so that work, or that process of actually doing some work in order to be able to include a transaction in the permanent ledger is called proof of work. So you might have heard that word before. And basically what happens is that computers are made to make these calculations over and over and over and over and over and over again, all trying to find a magic number. Think about the lottery, where you're spinning the wheel. All you're trying to do is you're trying to land in a certain number and then once you get the correct number, you win the lottery, and then you're awarded the prize. And that is the same thing that works in Bitcoin, where all these computers, that are scattered across the globe, that are, consuming all these huge amounts of energy, all trying to solve this problem. All they're trying to do is just to win that prize. And that prize is currently about 12.5 Bitcoins, roughly every 10 minutes. Oof. Now, 12.5 Bitcoins, 12.5 Bitcoins is probably worth...
Times 9,000. Times 9,000, close to 10,000, whatever US dollars.
Exactly.
I have a question about the banks in Nigeria. How has the banking industry in your country responded to this rise of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so point of correction. At $10,000 a coin, 12.5 Bitcoins is actually $125,000 dollars.
Yes.
Okay, so just so that we kind of, it's not $1 million yet. So to answer your question about how are Nigerian banks actually reacting to cryptocurrencies? Well, here's the truth. There's really nothing that they really can do. And again, this goes back to how Bitcoins are actually structured. There is no there's no central issuer, there's no central party, there's no central authority. There's no one you can go to and say, you are issuing these illegal tokens and we would not allow it in our country. There's no one you can go to for that. And so think about the fact that we're having this video call right now. And, I don't know how many people are actually aware that I'm actually doing this from my home. yes, despite the fact that we do have the ability for governments to actually be able to surveil communications, it's really, really difficult to censor information exchange on the internet. And because Bitcoin actually rides on how open and free the internet is, it is nearly impossible for you to actually clamp down on. A case in point would be the reaction of the Chinese government to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is illegal for you to actually trade Bitcoin in China, but that has not stopped the Chinese people from buying or selling Bitcoin. All you have to do is find someone who is willing to accept Bitcoins from you in exchange for Naira, for example, and then you have an exchange. So they have actually taken a more wise approach, which is, okay, we can see the potential destructive effects that Bitcoin can have on our economy. And then whether you see it as being disruptive in the positive way or in the negative, it really all depends on how you see things. And so what they've chosen to do now is to exercise caution, or basically just inform people that Bitcoin is not legal tender. There is no consumer protection. The Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation is not going to insure Bitcoin deposits or what have you, because it's not issued by the central bank. And so all they have done is make public announcements, basically just warning people to be very cautious when dealing with cryptocurrencies and other kinds of virtual currencies. And they haven't come out outrightly to ban or to legalize the use of cryptocurrencies in the country.
Has Nigeria been affected at all by some of the more non-blockchain ventures like OneCoin or MMM Global? I mean, has that had a okay?
Yes.
So
yes.
Yeah, I noticed.
As a matter of fact,
go ahead.
As a matter of fact, I would say that one of the reasons why Bitcoin has been very popular is because of one specific scam that actually ran in the country for about a year called MMM.
Right.
And so a lot of people actually got, their first exposure to Bitcoin as a result of actually wanting to participate in one of these. Now, the good thing is that Bitcoin, MMM has crashed, and, you don't really see people actually trying to invest in it anymore. But Bitcoin hasn't. And, a lot of people have continued to still use Bitcoins in Nigeria every day.
So how is Bitcoin being used in Nigeria? What kind of rollout? I mean, do you have people actually using it in stores, or do you have, or is it just people just buying to hold on to?
Yeah. So I would say that, I have seen two main use cases for Bitcoin in Nigeria. One of them is international payments, and that has been because, it's still quite, it's still quite difficult to actually access foreign exchange for to be able to actually make international payments. So you have a lot of merchants who want to pay their vendors who are in China or India, and it's either expensive or very difficult to be able to access the dollars that they need to be able to make those payments. And so we're beginning to increasingly see a lot of these merchants actually use Bitcoin as a way out to be able to pay their vendors for the goods that they intend to import. So that's one particular use case. The second one would actually be the increased, obviously the price going up almost tenfold this year has drawn quite a lot of interest from people who want to speculate or invest. So you're seeing an increased number of people who are actually buying Bitcoin just to hold or for investment purposes.
Okay, so let's talk about your venture. You have another one. Is it called Tanjalo? What exactly is it, and how does it benefit your customers?
So, I have witnessed the revolutionary powers of Bitcoin. I like to tell the story a lot because, anytime I actually engage in one of these transactions, it kind of gives me a glimpse into what the world could really look like. A couple of years ago, I had my team actually make a trip down to Accra, Ghana, and we stayed at this vacation rental home that was run by a Ghanaian who actually lives in the UK. And in the past, I've always paid her by making a bank wire transfer to her bank account. And, we've always had a lot of issues with that because one, the banks are okay. So usually by the following day, she will have gotten the funds in her account. But one thing we noticed was that we never could always tell what the exchange rate was. So even when I opted to actually pay the fees of the wire transfer, her bank would still charge her for something, right? And so it was always never too convenient to actually do a bank wire. And so one of these days I decided, why don't I use Bitcoin? Now, unfortunately, she wasn't really interested in accepting Bitcoin. So I found someone through a platform called Local Bitcoins who was willing to actually accept Bitcoin and make a UK bank transfer. I kid you not, in literally 5 minutes after starting the transaction, the funds were available in her bank account. A couple of days ago, I tried another transaction like that, and in 2 minutes, and I mean it, literally 2 minutes, the person I was sending funds to in the UK had the funds in their account. And so when I think about the transformative power of Bitcoin and how it could really, really, really transform the way we do commerce on a global scale, this just begins to look like just the tip of the iceberg. And after realizing how this, my partner and I, who is also my co-founder, we started to think about what could we do to actually bring this technology and make it accessible to Africans. And being Nigerians, we thought the natural place to start was to start in our own country here in Nigeria. And so that's how we actually founded Tanjalo. And Tanjalo is actually a Bitcoin brokerage. And our specific goal is actually to make cryptocurrencies accessible and easy to use. And so we created probably the easiest way to buy Bitcoin currently in Nigeria, and probably even the fastest as well. And Tanjalo is that platform that Nigerians can actually go to and use their bank debit cards or accounts to actually buy Bitcoin. And we also have plans to allow users who have Bitcoin to be able to sell their Bitcoin for Naira.
Is there any link between Tanjalo and Nigerians throughout the diaspora? I mean, you mentioned wire transfers and everything. Is there something that American Nigerians should know about in relationship to family back home, or is it just specifically for Nigerians in Nigeria?
So, actually, our plan is to expand across the entire country, and we're starting in Nigeria, obviously, and we have actually establish the fact that we have a significant community of diasporans who will be willing to use such a platform to send money back home. We're already beginning to see this, and Tanjalo is actually built so that we'll be able to do that. We currently don't have that as a service, but it is definitely something that we're looking forward to actually offering.
Yeah, because I think that my husband's family is from the Caribbean, and some of the same things that are happening among African nations, among Asian nations, among Caribbean nations is the kind of central bank dominance of locking out commerce even in between islands. So if my husband's family is in Trinidad and they may have a friend or business partner in Jamaica, they've actually got to go through a UK, Canadian, or American bank just to send money between, where they, really need to. And they too have been affected by MMM and OneCoin and some of the other ones that kind of has made the people there very reticent to jump onto Bitcoin, with the exception of probably Barbados and some of the more touristy spots. But this kind of idea of being able to, again, jump in and do business with one another versus always having to give a cut that kind of benefits the central banking system. Are you personally an investor of other coins other than Bitcoin, or do you just don't have time for that? What is your take on the whole ICO craze? And will we see anything come out of Nigeria? That's that too. Two-part question. Two-part.
Well, I don't think we're too far off having ICOs emanate from Nigeria. I personally, I'm not. So ICOs are actually a great concept. I think that the ability for companies to be able, and individuals actually, to be able to raise funding for ideas, for businesses, what have you, and using the technology of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies to do that is, when you think about it, it is basically the ability for people to be able to run and raise capital for businesses without, again, requiring, a lot of middlemen and everything. And so it has its own advantages, and at the same time, it also has certain disadvantages because there is no consumer protection. Users are going to be exposed to scams, and personally, I think that there are a lot of projects that are running ICOs that do not have any intention to deliver on the promises that they make to the investors. You can see that from how a lot of the ICOs are structuring themselves so that they don't appear to look like, securities. And I think that, that is a big red flag. And, for that reason, I'm actually very, very, a little risk averse when it comes to ICOs. I haven't invested in any ICOs. That is not to say I would not. I just haven't found any projects that I think worth investing.
Right. So do you
all coins are different.
Wait. What do you mean all coins are different? Explain that.
So altcoins are very different from ICOs, okay? Because with an altcoin, someone is offering another cryptocurrency, which is an alternative, and you might actually have a community currency, which is also a cryptocurrency. And because of that, you could actually have a community come around creating their own cryptocurrency to facilitate transaction and trade in their community. And I don't think that there is anything wrong with that. As long as you have people who are willing to adopt your cryptocurrency and use it for transactions, I think it's really great.
Is anything like that happening? Is anything like that happening in Nigeria? You're seeing local? No. Okay, not yet. So what is the climate like in Nigeria? Are there any upcoming conferences? I mean, what's the real world space in terms of training and education in terms of blockchain or Bitcoin?
Mm-hmm. So this year, I think we've had 2 cryptocurrency and blockchain conferences. We just had one that concluded last week. And so there is a significant amount of creation of awareness. I was also at a particular panel session at an event a couple of weeks ago, and they had a cryptocurrency panel that I led. And one of the really interesting things about that particular panel was that the room was full, and we had lots of people who were really, really keen on learning a bit more about cryptocurrencies and just basically having all the knowledge that they could get about how they could get involved as well.
Now, in terms,
there is a significant amount of awareness being created.
In terms of blockchain, just independent of cryptocurrency, are there any use scenarios that you think should be implemented in your country that kind of would be of a benefit?
So I have a hard time really thinking about other blockchain applications beyond finance. So being able to send money from one part to another. Again, this is actually based on the fact that I understand this technology from a technical level. So it's really difficult for me to see how that same technology could be applied to something like voting, for example. Mm-hmm. There are a number of reasons why that is so. Um, for example, when you start to talk about blockchains being used for electronic voting, you have this major issue of security. How do you ensure that those who have the tokens that is going to be used for voting are keeping those tokens secure, and that when they actually cast their votes, that they actually express the political opinions that they are interested in? So it becomes really, when you start to think about the practical application of a lot of these ideas, you start to see that there are quite a number of issues. Now, obviously, I don't think that these things are going to remain unimplementable for the long term. I'm sure that there are going to be very smart people who will come up with ways in which you can actually solve these problems. But I don't think that, based on my own research so far, that there are significant opportunities like being kind of described. And so I think that there is genuinely a blockchain hype. And so you find a lot of people who are claiming to do, perpetual motion machines on a blockchain. And so I'm actually kind of really skeptical about that. And I generally just advise people to think more critically about how these applications can actually really be done on a blockchain. The important thing to know about blockchains is that if you require trust, then you shouldn't be using a blockchain. If you require trust in any other third party, so for instance, let's look at the issue of property titles. If there is a dispute and on the blockchain it says that, Pius actually owns the title to this particular property, but legally you can overturn that, then of what use is the blockchain, in being able to provide some kind of final arbitration for things like land titles? So I think these ideas they're good ideas. They provide an opportunity for us to have a debate and to discuss how we can use this technology to solve some of these problems. But I think we also need to be realistic about the promise and about the potential for the technology. I think that the technology has tremendous potential, but I think that there's a lot of hype as well.
Yeah, we've actually had this conversation come up with a music venture that was saying, well, we'll put your creative property on the blockchain. And my kind of argument with that was, well, that's no different from the centralized system that we have now. You can copyright something, and then all of a sudden, the final decision is not decided until arbitration. And if you're a person that doesn't have any means and you're going against someone who has means, you're still going to lose because they're going to wrangle you around and around and around. So if you have someone who is an attorney or something, is like, oh, we're going to resolve things because it's going to prove you own it. Well, we already have that system now, and it still is not an equal weight with those who have money versus those who don't have money in terms of it's still, the courts are still ultimately going to have to decide. So yeah, it's very interesting that you put it in terms of property because it's the exact same thing. Now we have a few people that are in the group. If you have any questions, definitely shoot them to me or into the thread, and then we can add them. I know that Mayada is there, and she is in the U.S. and she has family in Sudan, and we've had conversations before, so I know she's probably listening to how do you send money back and forth, because that was very critical to what she was concerned about. But if anybody has any specific questions, definitely shoot them now, because we're going to keep Tim for a few more minutes. I really only had one additional question. I'm just scanning my notes really quickly. How can people get in touch with you? Is there any way that people can reach out to you in terms of, further education if they want to replicate what you're doing in your part of the world? I mean, our group primarily consists of people of African descent in the United States, but I've noticed there are quite a few Nigerians that have, even before I invited you, gained access, and there are quite a few people from South Africa. and there are quite a few people, definitely from the West Indies and the Caribbean. But any type of advice or how can they net with you to kind of replicate a Tanjalo in their part of the world is my final question, actually.
Yeah, so I think the best channel to actually reach out to me is on Twitter. My handle is T, that's the first initial of my name and my surname. So it's Akinbo on Twitter. That will be the best place. My DMs are open, so you can send me a message. And I look forward to connecting with a lot of you. And I am very open to seeing how I can help you set up something similar to Tanjalo, wherever it is that you reside, or where you want to, any ideas you have, and other places that you think you could implement such.
All right, Tim, we thank you and appreciate your time. Sorry for the technical difficulty early on. It's funny because we've only had, you're our second interview. Our first interview, if you get a chance to check the archives, is with Zay Gatsby, who's African-American, and he does more ICO analysis. And we're going to take a brief hiatus, and I'm going to probably get back to interviews with different people in January. But I think these are going to become important in terms of broadening the education. But definitely keep in touch. Definitely hit up the group when you have something to announce, or especially as it involves your ventures or problem solving, so we can get the conversation started on a global front. And I didn't hear any questions from the gang that's been watching, but I think I got a good interview from Dave Kirkley, and I know Mayada is watching because she announced that she was watching, and there's a couple other people. But generally throughout the week, you get more people in the evening times that are kind of tuning back in. So appreciate your time. I look forward to hearing from you again. Take care and good luck. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.